A few more days have passed since we last saw our survivors. They've been focused more than ever on figuring out how to escape the island. They've accepted that help is not going to arrive from the outside, and their only hope to make it out of here is going to be to save themselves. From their repeated encounters with the Empire, Sky has become convinced that she can create a makeshift version of the Imperial shuttle. Whether or not it'll function after the first jump is an entirely different matter. And it certainly won't be able to escape the atmosphere, but it's their best chance. The hope is that they'll be able to use it to jump close to the nearest settlement and attempt to seek aid from there. For now, that goal is still far off. They've got a lot of work to do if they're going to make that happen. A raid has arrived from the Toll Pack, and this time they're attacking from multiple directions. Let's rush out and take out one of the groups so we can focus our efforts on defending against just one direction. Alright, there we go. First raider dropped quick. Now we can fall back to the base and get ready for the larger group. The second group ended up pretty easy as well. Now we can collect their steel weapons and smelt them down, try to get a few extra resources for base building. It looks like one of the survivors might actually be worth saving. She is getting up there in years and her traits are really not that great, but she has a passion for crafting and we can make use of that. It's going to be much better than trying to force Sky to craft. Now, let's start working on reducing her resistance and converting her. We've been spending most of our time trying to recruit Ferret and prepare her mentally for life on the island. It's a bit dark to strip her from her family, brainwash her, and force her to live on a tiny pile of sand, but hey, we're desperate here. We'll try our best to release her to return home as soon as we can. Until then, she can be our tribal attendant. Let's check in on what Sky and Ordo have been chatting about lately. They've been chatting about raincoats. Wait, does it even rain here? There are plenty of sandstorms, but when's the last time it rained? They gabbed about entertainment and sweet foods. They've been living off a diet of fish and playing only horseshoes and chess. It's really no surprise that they're dreaming of literally any other kind of food, and a break from the constant horseshoes. Luckily, chess is infinitely replayable at least. And now a toxic fallout has settled into the area around the island. They spend almost all of their time inside the hut anyway, so this won't be a huge problem. But it is going to slow down the cacti growth. That's okay though, most of our wood production is coming from bonsai trees anyway. So it really shouldn't be too big of a problem. Hopefully the fish are still safe to eat. You'd think they'd all be poisoned by the toxic fallout in the same way that animals are. Well, it doesn't work like that, but it probably should. Oh, that's wonderful. In the middle of the fallout, a bulk goods trader has arrived. It really begs the question, how in the world did the bulk goods trader make it all the way here without dying from the fallout? Oh well, they're here now, and we desperately need to trade for resources to build the multi-analyzer. It's really going to be the last big hurdle of escaping the island. Once we get that, we can finish researching shuttle, and then it's just a matter of getting chem fuel and enough resources to build a shuttle. We can always deconstruct the base for resources if it does come to that, so it should be fine in the end. This trader only has wood, but we can use that to start working on another room expansion. It actually might be enough wood to completely build this new section. Let's also use some of this wood to replace some of these central heavy bridges that aren't holding anything up. Kind of just a waste of steel. Normal wood bridges should be plenty in these spaces. Then we can use that steel for something else. Well, it wasn't quite enough wood to completely finish the room expansion, but it did get us most of the way there. Looks like we still need about 150 or so more wood. Shouldn't be too hard to get at this rate that we're going. They've been making steady progress on recruiting Ferret. Her resistance is now at 0, and we can start working on converting her. The conversion process should go rather quickly, then we can switch back to recruiting, and she should join the colony right away. It'll only take 1 or 2 attempts at that point. Well, there's no heat wave, but the heat has got to Ferret nonetheless. She's collapsed on the floor only a few feet away from where Ordo and Sky were fishing. The really messed up thing is that they didn't do anything to help her right away. Sky even went off to take a nap. Ordo joined her not long after. Maybe they just assumed she was taking a nap and didn't notice she was dying. Sky woke up and realized Ferret was still unconscious and went to check on her. It was only then that she realized there was a problem. She put on some of the protective clothing that they had sitting around and it helped immediately. Ferret should be safe now. Well, a gift from the sky has arrived. One that might actually come in quite handy in the near future. A massive pile of yayo. Must have been some drug smuggler dropping their cargo to try to evade the Empire. The Empire has a huge presence in this area. They must have hit a patrol and needed to escape. Well, it's ours now and they cannot have it back. Who knows, maybe Sky and Ordo can skip the whole shuttle plan and pay someone in Yayo to rescue them. Well, probably not. Better stick to the shuttle plan. Speaking of the Empire, they've requested help taking care of their favorite pet named Land. A walrus. Well, what better place than an island to care for a walrus? He's gonna love it here. The walrus is paralyzed, so it's gonna have to just sleep next to the fishing hole. Maybe it'll get some enjoyment out of watching them fish. At least it's gonna be able to eat as much fish as it could possibly want. We have a near limitless supply of fish for it. Ferret's already 50% converted toward the ideology of Sky and Ordo. It's been going by quickly and really shouldn't take too much longer to finish the job. After that, the recruitment process is going to be rather quick. Hopefully. Sky and Ordo were so focused on converting Ferret that they stopped paying much attention to the walrus. They fed it intermittently, but apparently that was not enough for the paralyzed walrus. It finally had enough and got up and started wandering around looking for more food. Well, at this point, better to let the walrus roam around out in the water now. No need to keep it penned up inside the hut, causing a massive mess. That thing really is filthy. After all that, Ferret has finally joined. It only took nearly 2 quadrums to do all that work. At least by now, she must be used to life on the island. Welcome to the team, Ferret. Let's get you to work right away on crafting. We are going to need to build a 3rd bedroll now. Let's go ahead and go on an emu hunt, get a little bit more leather. Now that we have 3 pawns, we're going to need plenty more for crafting more clothing. Let's take all this leather and combine it to make 50 patch leather. Then we can build that bedroll for Ferret. There we go. Now she has a place to sleep right between Sky and Ordo. That will surely disappoint a few people, but that's the way it goes. And now a bulk goods trader has arrived from the east. Let's go ahead and see what they brought. We might be able to get our hands on enough wood to finish that room in the southwest. They did bring a ton of wood, but let's see if we have enough to trade for it. Looks like if we trade all of our leather, some of the meat, the hyperweave shirt, and a bit of the yayo, then we'll have enough to get all of their wood. That might be enough to finish the room. We'll see. Well, that plan was interrupted almost immediately. Tribals from the Confederacy of Lulam have arrived from the south looking to ambush the caravan that arrived recently. They brought a lot of weaponry. We do outnumber them with the help of the caravan, so we have that to our advantage. They engage the caravan almost immediately, but they're already doing massive damage to the walls of those grenades. And now they're throwing Molotov cocktails into the hole in the wall. Wonderful. If the fire spreads across the wood, we're going to be in huge trouble. Now they've taken out the entire eastern wall, and the fire is already spreading. With the help of the caravan, we managed to take out the raiders. Now we need to deal with this fire. Okay, there we go. Minus the wall, the base didn't actually take as much damage as it could have. That really went pretty well overall. Let's throw some steel walls up to replace what was destroyed and then get the rest of the weapons melted down. Now we can go back to the task of finishing this room. We at least have enough wood to put the rest of the bridges in. That'll serve as the floor. That's done. Now let's try to get the walls in. There we go. The wall's finished now, so we can remove this middle section and reclaim some of the wood that we were using there. Hey, that looks good. Now there's a ton more space inside the main room and everything looks much better. The survivors have finally begun work on creating the high-tech research bench. This is the first step towards getting off the island. Another shuttle has crashed onto the island. After the first shuttle that landed, the survivors were shattered to find out they weren't being rescued. And over time, the shuttles crashing on the island became more of an annoyance than anything. But now, the shuttles have once again become a source of joy for the survivors as they pick through the wreckage, learning more about how to create their own escape from this place. And not to mention, the resources they manage to pull out of each one ends up amounting to quite a bit. Another bulk goods trader has arrived on the island, and this one actually brought steel. Let's see what we can trade to get as much steel as we possibly can. All of this gives us enough to receive 225 steel. That ought to put a pretty significant dent in our current steel needs. Let's use some of that steel to put up a comms console. It would seem at this point the survivors would try their best to send out a broadcast asking for help, but any such messages would end up falling on deaf ears. Even if they were heard, no one seems to care. It's unfortunate being shipwrecked on a planet where no one trusts each other and everyone is struggling to survive. the very least, they'll be able to use the comms console to trade with the automated trade ships that occasionally pass into orbit over the planet. Maybe they'll be able to finally sell a shuttle engine or two. And maybe get rid of some of this jade. Yet another group of Edikine have arrived to try to kidnap the survivors and steal their stuff. The survivors sent them running as quickly as they arrived. The raid would not have been noteworthy if it wasn't for the fact that they brought several weapons that can be smelted down and used to help us work towards our ultimate goal. Up in the northwest corner of the island, we've planned out an area where a new solar panel is going to go in. The old solar panel might last us until the end, but it's starting to really get maxed out running all these electric tables that we've got set up now. We do need to add another battery as well, but that's going to have to wait for now. Maybe we'll be able to survive with just the one. We'll just have to consume less electricity when the solar panels aren't producing. We'll see how that goes for now. The heavy bridges are finished, and now we just need to build the new solar and wall the room in. We'll just have to make sure the solar area remains unroofed. While we were working on that, a mech cluster has landed on the map. Well, sort of. This was the first mech cluster event to happen so far. There was a question on whether or not we could even have one spawn, or if they'd end up landing directly on the island, but now we have our answer. They're pretty broken. Turns out mech clusters were not designed to spawn on a map like this. The cluster was immediately defeated, but the mechs did land in the water. Let's go ahead and deal with the mechs and then smash them up for steel. We could use the MP grenades here, but let's just outrange them. It'll be easy. Keep cutting them backward. Yeah, that was simple enough. Now let's smash the corpses and get that precious steel. A new person has wandered up to the island and is asking for help. Let's go ahead and see what their stats are and whether or not they're worth keeping around. Well, greedy isn't great, but Farrah's already greedy, so all in all, he's leaps and bounds better than she is. He even has a double passion for crafting and shooting. It looks like we're going to let him stay. And of course, it's not because he's well suited for the colony, it's because he's in need and won't survive without us. Of course. Unfortunately, he brought something very unpleasant with him. The plague. Real nice, Neville. Real nice. He contracted the plague himself and has spread it to Sky. Let's go ahead and take them off self-tend and let Ordo focus on tending the two. This is going to be Neville's test to see if he can stay in the colony. Whether or not he can survive the plague. Let's focus all the good medicine on Sky and give Neville the herbal stuff. It's payback for bringing plague onto the island. We better keep them both on bed rest to give them the best chance of survival that we can. Ideally, we would build a couple beds, but let's see how the bedrolls work out. Now the question of what to do with Ferret. Ferret was stolen from her tribe and has been longing for the opportunity to return home to her family. It looks like this is her chance to go. She doesn't need to stay here any longer, and she can bring back our ideology to her people. That's a win-win. She can't swim home with all this leather clothing and armor on, so she better leave that behind before she goes. We don't want her to drown. Good luck out there, Ferret. Say hello to your family for us, and please, tell them to stop raiding us. Unfortunately, Neville's ideas are incompatible with the island life, so we're going to have to convert him before he can be a permanent resident. At least this time, we don't need to go through the process of recruiting him, and when we're done, we can release him right back into the colony, so this should go a bit quicker than it did with Ferret. We've almost got everything we need for that second solar panel now. Just a little bit more steel and we'll be able to finish building it. In the end, it's mostly just going to allow us to run the smelter without draining the battery during the day. We'll still be limited to our overnight power capacity with only one battery, but it should be fine. Ordo and Sky managed to convert Neville rather quickly. It only took them 5 days and he was ready to rejoin the rest of the survivors. After Sky finally converted Neville, she told him a joke about cauliflowers. It must have made him hungry because he immediately commented about lunchtime. There haven't been any vegetables in the colony for years, so they must have settled on a lunch of baked fish with a side of baked fish. Neville has officially rejoined as a full colonist. But at the same time, vultures have descended on the island looking for food. They're not going to find any here, because all the survivors are going to hide inside the hut for as long as they can. At least they're nice and safe inside. They've managed to get rather close to finishing the multi-analyzer research. One of the last big hurdles that we're going to have to get past is the resource requirement for building this thing. It's going to take 20 gold, which we have no easy way of acquiring. Maybe a trader or a quest will bring some. Doesn't seem like there's really going to be any other way to get it. While the vultures were swarming around outside, a new quest has popped up offering another legendary revolver for a volcanic winter. Well, this one is a no-brainer. A wonderful weapon, and in exchange the map gets colder? Yes, please. The revolver has incendiary rounds, tactical sight, and aim assistance. It'll be an absolutely fantastic weapon for Ordo. Let's just hope those incendiary rounds don't lead to a fire inside the hut. Well, it might be a bit premature accepting this quest while the vultures are still wandering around, but oh well. At least the durability loss is only 0.2 a day, so it's going to lose almost nothing by the time the vultures take off. Alright, the vultures are gone, and now Ordo can grab the revolver. Kinda neat that Sky and Ordo have nearly matching legendary revolvers. Now they just need to hit the road and they can become iconic RimWorld cowboys. They'll tell legends about them one day. Maybe. A couple of cargo pods have crashed onto the island, one of which went right through the roof. A bit of a nuisance, but at least it brought a decent amount of steel that we can smelt down and use to finish that solar panel. After everything was smelted down, we had just enough to finish this thing. Now we just need to build a few more bridges and a few walls, and we'll have a bit of protection for the solar panel. It won't exactly be safe, but at least the raiders won't be able to go directly for it like the other one. We've been getting really lucky with these. We're gonna have to go see what they've brought. Meanwhile, Neville has finished researching transport pods. It's one of the last techs we need to be able to unlock the secrets of the shuttle. They've already learned quite a bit from sifting through all the shuttle wreckage, but Sky's convinced there's still a missing component that she doesn't quite understand yet. That understanding will soon be theirs. Well, as soon as we can get that multi-analyzer. Until then, let's shut off the research bench. Try to save some power. Fortuitously, this trader happens to have brought 20 gold. We've really been in need of that gold. We're going to have to trade a bit of the plasteel for it. Now, it is true that we need plasteel for the multi-analyzer, but it's been much easier to get our hands on plasteel from quests than it has been getting gold, so this is an acceptable trade at this point. Let's get Neville working on making new clothing for everyone. By now, Sky and Ordo's clothing has numerous holes throughout and it's getting rather threadbare. The Devil Strand and Synthread dusters are just about at the end of their life. It would be nice to replace their flak vests as well, but that's going to take a bit more than we're capable of at the moment. We've got plenty of camel leather from the dromedary migrating through this area, so we can use that to make clothing that has at least somewhat decent heat protection. In terms of the sharp protection, it won't be quite as good as what they already had, but as long as it stops them from getting heat stroke, it's going to be plenty. You know, we actually have a ton of plasteel in these walls that we could swap out for something else in the short term. That might give us just enough plasteel to build the multi-analyzer. Let's at least take out these interior walls and replace them with wood for now. We still need more steel for the multi-analyzer as well, so we won't be able to build the thing immediately, but at least this is one step closer. And just like that, another shuttle quest has arrived. This time they're offering plasteel. There's also plasteel in the ship, so we should have all that we need for quite a while. With the help of the Imperials, the raid ended up being a complete pushover. Now we can get back to the business of escaping this island. The Empire might not have directly helped us, but at least they ultimately played an important role in the escape. This time around, the survivors have decided to keep the shuttle engine. They're going to be needing that one in the not too distant future. We've got most of the resources we need for the multi-analyzer now, but they can't build the thing on wooden bridges, so they're going to need to upgrade a 2x2 space with heavy bridges to support it. Let's work on that now and then figure out what resources we still need for it. Looks like steel is going to be the main issue here. Now, manhunting monitor lizards have arrived and are swarming the island. Let's hope no important traders arrive while they're angry. Well, finally a ship has arrived overhead, but it's a combat supplier, and we've got nothing to trade them. So far, this comms console has not been paying off. We might be better off just deconstructing the thing and repurposing the resources for the multi-analyzer. Well, steel has arrived directly through the roof. Cargo pods have crashed right into the hut. Looks like they are filled with rhino leather. At least that'll be useful to make a halfway decent duster. It won't be quite as good as the Devil Strand, but it'll definitely work as a replacement to get rid of the tattered clothing mood penalty. Not only does that give us enough steel to build the heavy bridges, it's also everything we need to finish the multi-analyzer. It might have seemed like bad luck to have something crash through the roof, but it really worked out nicely, didn't it? The multi-analyzer is now finished. We can finally finish research on the most important tech that we're going to get on the island, the shuttle. While Neville works on the new duster, Bardo's been busy at work at the research bench, working on finding the missing piece of Sky's plan for escape. They each took turns studying the problem, each one making slow but steady progress. They worked day and night on a solution. None of them had any experience with spaceflight outside of the interactions with the Empire, and because of this, progress was slow. After 9 days of non-stop work, they had a breakthrough. The missing piece that would allow Sky to construct a makeshift shuttle to take them off the island. They deconstructed the research bench and used those resources to build a chem fuel refinery so they could convert wood into fuel for the shuttle. They'd only need just enough to make it to the mainland. They already had everything they needed to build the shuttle and escape, but the resources necessary would have to be stripped from the walls and bridges around them. They began with taking out the heavy bridges that they would no longer need. From there, they began to work on dismantling any walls that were not critical for their immediate survival. Neville had been busy converting fish into chem fuel, but with perfect timing, a bulk goods trader has arrived. Perhaps the last bulk goods trader they'll encounter. And they brought chem fuel. It was a series of terribly unlucky events that brought Sky to the island originally, and it appears it will be a series of terribly lucky events that will take her away from it. Let's trade away all the extra resources and get as much chem fuel as we can. 65 chem fuel, that will help at least. They need enough chem fuel to cross the ocean over to the mainland where they hope to find a settlement where they can find help, or find a new home. They tore down the remaining walls that would need to be used for the shuttle and began construction. Sky stayed up all night working on the project. She didn't sleep at all, but in the end, it was worth it. As soon as the sun began to rise, she put the finishing touches on the shuttle, and it was ready to launch. They loaded up the fuel and then the food. They placed their bedrolls inside and they all piled in. Sky plotted a course westward where she was certain there was a landmass. She had vague memories from her life before the island, and she was somewhat certain her boat had sailed from the west. The plan was to set the shuttle down when they spotted a landmass large enough to support civilization. The shuttle flew quickly, and not even an hour after launch, they spotted the mainland that they had been looking for. They still continued on for some time before seeing the signs of a settlement. They took the shuttle as far as they could before setting it down. They continued on foot to the settlement where they were welcomed as friendly visitors. They shared the story of their ordeal with anyone and all who would listen. After a short stay in the settlement, Neville decided to part ways with Sky and Ordo. He planned to stay in the settlement. Sky, on the other hand, was adamant on returning to her search for her family and the rest of the crew that had been lost at sea. Sky was stranded on the island for over 7 years, and never gave up hope that if she survived, others would have as well. She decided she would set out once again as soon as she could acquire enough supplies to travel to the nearest settlement. Ordo decided she would stay with Sky and help her in her journey. By now, the two had become such close friends that it was difficult to imagine parting. It's impossible to say where their journeys would lead them, or whether or not they would find what they were looking for. But one thing was certain, life on the island had changed them for the better. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for updates on all future videos. For those of you who made it all the way to the end, please consider checking out my Patreon to help support the creation of more videos like this one. You'll find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you for the next one.